All right, ladies, you know the drill over here. The goal is to be the best version of ourselves. And if you happen to be a mom, be the best mom ever and maintain your sanity while we do it. Okay, let's get into some of today's top stories real quick. Um, this is crazy, guys. Like today, eh, it's a little crazy. It's a little crazy, but we're gonna get right into it. How are you doing? Put like, drop a heart or something in the chat if you're doing good today. If you are not doing good, girl, drop a thumbs down, and whatever you drop, I will understand. But anyway, I want to talk about this story with Dr. Chanel Bryant, who is not a doctor. Okay. And basically, she has been on many different platforms and has basically given the public the idea that she is a licensed therapist when she is not. She uses the title doctor when she is not. Now, there's two types of doctors, and I was kind of surprised to see how many people don't know this, but you have a PhD doctor or doctorate, which means the person is a doctor of their field of study. So, think people who, maybe you have a doctorate in education, maybe you have a doctorate in health, maybe you have a doctorate in business. You can have a doctorate and many other things, social work, even all those things. And what that means is you will have to write a dissertation and publish research. So, people who have doctorates are people who can actually teach in secular settings, universities, colleges. They are able to instruct, teach, and lead education in our country. And they are also able to publish studies and contribute to research in our country. So, those who have doctorates in education, those are the folks who are, contributing their studies and things like that to our public health systems that monitor education and so on and so forth. Those people are not medical doctors. Medical doctors means that you went to a medical school, you went through a medical program to become a doctor, and you are a doctor in the field of health as related to whatever condition is your specialty study. So, you can be a general health doctor, you can be a surgeon. There's additional steps to becoming a surgeon though, but basic doctors can perform simple surgeries, things like that. But that, consult the medical board if you really want a deep breakdown of all that. But a medical doctor works in a clinical setting, means they see patients, they can prescribe medications, they, also contribute to research as well. But they also are going to have a PhD along with that as well. Okay. So it's a whole thing, and they're two completely different things. So, she was calling herself a doctor in the terms of being someone who can prescribe therapies. She was saying that she was a licensed therapist when she was not. At some point, she said she was licensed. She has since come out and said, "Oh, I'm not licensed anymore," which is always a huge red flag. When someone tells you they're not licensed anymore, yet they're dishing out advice, all of that, and really taking patients in a practice or speaking on a large public platform, that is really problematic. And as we go through this, I'm going to break down some of the legal things as to why this is very problematic and how. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's important. Welcome to Work It Lady podcast, where it's time to put in the work regarding educating yourself on all areas of your health and well-being. At Work It Lady podcast, we are dedicated to empowering women to take control of their health and mental well-being. Our mission is to provide women with the knowledge, inspiration, and tools needed to transform their lives, from improving nutrition and fitness, navigating womanhood, and if you're a mom, excelling failing at motherhood. Step 1, like this episode. Step 2, share it with someone you love, and even the haters, they need help too. Step 3, subscribe on podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, join our mailing list to stay in the loop on classes and events. I am so happy you made it here, girl. Thank you. How to protect yourself as well, because it is a problem. So, again, we kind of have broken down the differences, okay, between the two different types of doctor. So that's what she was doing. She's posing that she is a PhD level doctor, meaning that she could teach in an institution, that she can also, practice her, trade as a licensed therapist. Now, to be a therapist, you need a master's degree. A PhD is higher than a master's degree. So if she had a master's degree at some point, which you basically kind of have to get a PhD. You can't just get a PhD without getting a master's. If she had her master's and that was all good, and then she went and took her licensure to become a therapist, well, she wouldn't even need to become a doctor. So the fact that she even started using the term doctor, to me, is a red flag, because she could have just come on, if she was licensed as a therapist, she could have came on the internet and just said, "Hey, I'm a licensed therapist." Why do you need to add the doctor? The reason is that, in my opinion, who knows? I don't know this woman or what she's doing. It basically is just something to do for clout, so that people take your words more seriously because you're saying, "I'm a doctor." Okay. So that is what you have to be careful about when you're picking people who you are going to, take advice from, listen to, and engage with their content, because you don't want to be getting bad information. And especially in the field of therapy, this is a big deal. So you guys have probably already heard some of the stories, that she attended this university or Grossi that is no longer in business, and she couldn't get her transcripts, and I couldn't get this, and I couldn't get that, and then this had happened, and then that had happened. It basically just gave the idea of fraud to me based on everything that she was saying. So it's just like, okay, why did you have to give us all of that word salad? She has been interviewed on a couple of platforms, and she's like very defensive. "I'm not going to talk about this again. And this, it is what it is." And she even used explicit language and things like that. And it's like, first of all, that's very unprofessional. And second of all, if you need to clear something up, why not just pull out your degree, pull out your credentials? So she basically, in the interviews, if you watch them, she just kind of keeps repeating the same talking point. "I put in the work. I worked hard. I did this. I did that." But the words that you're not using is, "I'm a licensed therapist. Here is my degree." So this is what I try to tell people. Understand when you are being fed word salad. The interviewer would clearly ask her, "Hey, do you have a degree?" "I've put in work. I don't have to prove myself to anyone." You didn't answer the question. So I can be very like type A, on things like this. Like, if you are ever asking a person a question and they give you word salad, meaning they do not confront the question that you ask them head on, stop talking to them, disengage, and walk away, because they're a fraud. This has fraud written all over it. This is my opinion. I don't know the ins and outs of this woman, or what she does. Maybe she is right. Maybe she just is really bad at presenting herself, and maybe just is not doing a great job of showing us what the situation actually is. But in my opinion, which, hey, my opinion doesn't mean anything, this woman is a fraud. She could have simply come on as a life coach. You don't need many credentials to do that. And there are very successful public speaker life coaches out there who are able to give good information and all that, with the proper view to the public without misleading the public. Okay. So again, it's just, she really is a hot mess with this. So let's get into why you want to avoid people who are unlicensed, because I've run into this before where someone will say, "Oh, I'm this or that. I don't have my license though. I'm a doctor, but I don't have my license anymore." Even Dr. Oz, that was one of the things that he has been criticized for, is, he at some point let his license expire. Don't quote me on that. Maybe I'm getting him confused with Dr. Phil, but one of them, I don't know exactly which one, um, did not, when they were at their kind of peak of speaking on talk shows and addressing large audiences, they were, out of practice at that point and were not licensed. They had not kept their credential up to date, and it caused a lot of backlash, very similar to what this woman is getting for very understandable reasons. So the reason, again, you want to avoid this, because anyone who's a licensed therapist, a psychologist, social worker, doctor, nurse, anything where the person has the ability to touch your person, to make a diagnosis, or do mental therapy and prescribe any sort of therapy for you, they are not getting up to date treatments. And up to date, excuse me, not treatments, they're not getting up to date information to share with you, because when you have a license, you have to do something called CEs every year, every 2 years, to get basically brought up to speed with all the new medical research histories, all the new cultural competencies, crisis intervention, laws, and even ethical laws, trauma treatment, and even suicide prevention. And especially in the realm of psychology, you really have to be careful there. So again, people who do not have a license, they are not staying up to date with common practice. So you are 1000% getting outdated information. Because again, once you go to update that license every year, you have to submit all the new classes that you have taken to be, to meet the requirement for the credential. Okay. So understand that. Understand that. Now, the number two reason that you don't want to see someone who no longer is practicing with a license is no professional oversight. That means licensed professionals, they actually answer to state licensing boards if they harm a patient, if a complaint is filed, requests for investigations, disciplinary actions, license expenditures. All of these things are recorded with the state. So if you are seeing someone who is not licensed, you have no clue if this person has had an investigation, if they've had complaints. At the point in which they stop getting licensed, the only information you're going to be able to retrieve is from that point backward. So whatever they do in front of that, girl, you are in a danger zone. And a lot of people who say, "Oh, I don't practice anymore," it's because they've had investigations. They've harmed a patient. So they just start using, "Oh, well, I still know all the same stuff, so I'll just start talking about it. I'll just start speaking on it." A lot of these people have harmed people. Don't go to them. So please do not go to them. Okay. Some other things to note. Reason why this is, again, not a good idea is, usually people who do this, they are basically trying to do a money grab. Sometimes they will charge, absorbent fees. And they really are not there for you. So they kind of get you kind of looped into this like money cycle. Hey, come back and I'll do this. Come back and I'll do that. Come back and I'll do this. You are nothing but a dollar sign to them. Okay. Also, if a person is out of practice, you would probably get better rates if you were going through an insurance company. If a person is not in practice, they are not able to bill insurance. Once you don't have those credentials, all of that stops. That is to my knowledge. You need to research that further to see if that is actually the case across the board. But I do know for some professions that that is the case. Okay. So, again, go on your state websites and check people out, especially if it's someone who has to cut on you. They are going to prescribe things for you, medications, or they are someone who is practicing clinical psychology, and offering mental health therapies. Okay. Be careful. You can, ask for their number, their license number, and you can look all that up. Typically, you can even find somebody by name in most states. Okay. So, girl, y'all be careful. I just want to talk on that one real quick because, I've heard people say this too. This is also something that you will see in the natural community. So, a lot of the people who sell essential oils, they're in these pyramid schemes and stuff like that. They will be people who formerly maybe were therapists and doctors and all of this and had their credentials. They lost their credential due to malpractice and they cannot practice anymore. So now they start using those, you know, former credentials and their fancy names and fancy schooling that they've done. They start using that in the natural community to mislead people and to get in all these, essential oils that they don't need and all of this stuff. Okay. And again, there is a place for essential oils, but when you're prescribing them and there is no governance for that. There is no governance for that. So you are running into a dangerous realm. I know many who listen to the podcast are into the essential oils. Girl, you taking a risk. You're taking a risk because there's no guidance for dosages with that. So you have to just be as careful as you can. But again, do know that a lot of these people who have started um, these MLMs that do essential oils and vitamin supplements and all these things, a lot of them are outdated health professionals, people who used to have credentials. They slide in, they convince you, they are able to use convincing speech and big words because they do, they did go to school for it. So they know what buzzwords to use. They know how to confuse you and make a topic look big and confusing, or maybe even make something seem simple and clear, or give you a voice. Maybe someone's never listened to you like that before, but the whole ploy is listen to me because I've had all this schooling. Meanwhile, they've lost their credentials, they're outdated, they don't have current information, and they're using that clout that they have to get you to dish out money. So don't fall for it. Okay, so don't fall for it. All right, next topic. Let's talk about this polycystic ovary syndrome name change. Okay. So, the condition formerly known as PCOS has been renamed after a 14-year international effort involving doctors, researchers, and more than 22,000 patients. So, this one is new. This has just come out, within the past day or three on several different media outlets, even including the New York Times, that this is going to be a thing. The term PCOS is going to start becoming a term of the past. So the old term polycystic ovary syndrome focused heavily on ovarian cysts, but many women with the condition do not actually have ovarian cysts. The cysts are often immature follicles, not true cysts. The disorder affects far more than the ovaries. So, this is why the name was changed. So, again, the name was changed because the name really didn't fully embody or encompass the whole picture of the diagnosis. Okay. So, this new term is going to be PMOS, which means polysyndecrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. Okay. So I'll say that again. Polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. Now, this is a better idea now of what this condition actually is. The condition affects multiple hormone systems, not just the ovaries. This includes insulin, androgens, reproductive hormones, and stress hormones. This is one of the biggest changes because doctors want to gear their attention on insulin resistance, weight changes, diabetes risk, fatty liver disease, cholesterol problems, and cardiovascular risk. And so many women with the condition have historically said that doctors, when they heard that you had PCOS, really only focused on fertility and periods while ignoring the diabetes risk, the cardiovascular risk, and all the other things that go along with the condition. Okay. So, the ovarian component is still included because irregular ovulation and reproductive systems are still the key feature of this. You're still going to see, the ovary issues. A lot of the women do have like a little bit of excess or even sometimes a lot of excessive facial hair. All those things are still going to be under this new term as well, those symptoms. So the symptoms are the same. It's just going to be a name change so that as doctors are researching this, they are looking for a broader um, spectrum of symptoms. Okay. So basically, the experts are also saying that this misunderstanding has delayed diagnosis for many, and we don't want that. We want people to be diagnosed as quickly as possible. So, again, the key markers for this condition are hormone symptoms, insulin resistance, irregular cycles, acne, excessive facial hair, and metabolic issues. Okay. So, this is going to lead to better overall care. You're going to get more screenings for heart disease, obesity complications, mental health problems, sleep apnea, inflammation. All of these things now can become a part of a workup. So remember, everything is coded and everything has to have a proper um, symptom list so that it can be coded properly so that then when they go to the insurances can then say, okay, if they have this condition, we can cover testing for heart disease, obesity complications, mental health, all these things under PCOS. Okay. Versus before going to the doctor and you say, okay, I have PCOS, I feel like I'm having heart problems. They may have thought, hey, well, this might not be related. But now, because of all the research, they're saying, okay, this is related. And we need to include all these symptoms in a workup. So people are going to start getting much better care. So I love this topic because, again, our health professionals are working so hard to give us the best care possible. I just love all the science. And I just love that this was also an international effort. You know what I mean? So this is something that's been seen throughout the world as something that needs attention. This is not just a USA problem. This has been happening worldwide where women with PCOS have been having a lot of their symptoms related to PCOS overlooked. Okay. So another thing that this is going to do is it's going to give more research funding. Researchers say that the name change could increase medical investment and raise public awareness. So again, more research on insulin resistance, better medications, earlier prevention strategies, and improved long-term care. Okay. It is so many good things that are happening about this. Um, so again, another thing I want to share here is how is this going to really affect you at the doctor's office, right? Like I've touched on some. I encourage you to go on endocrine.org. They have a whole article about this because this was kind of like in their breaking news section. So definitely head over there and get some more information on this. Um, Medical coding systems, as I mentioned, used by insurance companies like ICD diagnostic codes, um, aren't changing yet, but the diagnoses and the symptoms will start to get included under that code. Okay. So this will be kind of a process rollout. So, it's not going to be something that changes overnight, but this I feel is going to be somewhat of a swift change, because it just has to be done quickly because now they know that other symptoms are part of the diagnosis. So that this part of the codes do have to be upgraded pretty quickly, I'll say. Okay. So, do you need to go back and get re-diagnosed if this is you? If you've been diagnosed with PCOS, do you need to go back and now be diagnosed with PMOS? Okay. Do you need to change that? Do you need to change in your medical chart from PCOS to PMOS, this new term? Okay. Here's my 2 cents. Yes. Okay. Um, I would, just because going forward, in my personal opinion, I did get certified in ICD-10 coding. I don't know a ton of how it works in relations to insurance companies, but I do appreciate kind of the code level administrative um information and education that I received. So just going off of that, I would tell you, in my opinion, yes, it will be worth it for you to go back and get a new diagnosis, because then your symptoms will already be recorded under this new code when it rolls out. And I think it's just going to make your life easier getting additional treatments and diagnoses in the future. And don't forget, whenever you go to the doctor's office, you are contributing to research. The doctors, all of the information does get, pulled and everything, and it's used by researchers. So again, if you can go ahead and get yourself, with the new terminology on your chart, it's going to help you and it's going to help researchers as well. So reasons that you may want to really go back is, again, if you have symptoms that have worsened, if you were never formally diagnosed, maybe, you know, uh, the doctor said, hey, you may have this, but when you look at your chart, you're not really seeing a full diagnosis. I would then go back and get this new diagnosis. I would get the PMOS diagnosis. If you want updated metabolic testing, go back and do the follow up appointment and get the official diagnosis. If you have insulin resistance, go back, get the official diagnosis. If you feel like you are having diabetes or increased risk for heart disease, definitely want to go back and get the diagnosis. Okay. So, until this is officially updated nationwide, probably what's going to happen with insurers is that for those who are already diagnosed with PCOS, claims will continue to be processed under those existing codes. But then, again, as things are updated, you'll be rolled over to those new codes. And again, it's probably going to do nothing but help if you just go in, get the official diagnosis of PMOS. Okay. Yeah, I hope that bit is helpful, because a lot do suffer with PCOS. I feel like PCOS is one of those things that's really underdiagnosed and overdiagnosed. Some people, don't have all the markers for PCOS, but feel like they do. This is a good time to just take care of your woman's health, girl, and skip on over there to the doctor and see what they could do. All right, let's get into this next story. This one is a little icky, guys. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. A lot of us here are mothers on the podcast, and if we're not, we all deeply care about our young ones. We see young ones daily. Wherever you're at in the world, that's just something that all of us here do. We care about our young ones, and whew, a lot of our young ones are in school, and this is why parents are so nervous now with school. So Marius Nicholas, a 25-year-old biology teacher and football operations manager at Alexandra High School, was arrested for allegedly having sexual encounters with a student in a shared classroom closet and a parked SUV. While Nicholas is currently out on a $40,000 bond, parents have voiced outrage over a lack of academic instruction in their classrooms and a perceived failure by the school district to ensure student safety. Okay. Despite her leadership role as the district's biology program lead. So this woman leads the biology program in her district for this school district, and that's the Douglas County school system. They've remained silent regarding her employment status. And, I'm sure that they'll hash all that out. But as of date, they just kind of staying quiet, as they're probably doing an investigation. Okay. Um, I feel like I'm seeing a trend, guys. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like just this past year alone, I have seen multiple cases of very pretty young white teachers having sex with their students. And no lie, it's a little weird. And I'm like, okay, what's really driving this? Now, again, anybody is possible of doing anything. This is not by me making that statement. That is not anything that's racially charged. This is just the news reports that we have been seeing. I can think of four right off the top of my head, and there have been a whole host more of those. It's always a very pretty, energetic looking teacher, usually under the age of 27 years old, super pretty, fit, and then she's knocking down the football team, you know what I'm saying, in between classes. What's going on? Okay. So I want to kind of talk about how stuff like this happens and give my 2 cents. Like, remember this is just my 2 cents. I don't actually know why these very cute teachers are having intercourse with their students. I don't like it. And as a parent, it makes me very uneasy. I am always an advocate for women. We've seen this type of predatory behavior a lot with male teachers. Even myself, going back to high school, I've had multiple inappropriate interactions, not of me doing anything, but the teacher or the faculty member or the coach laying hands on students, touching in inappropriate ways, rubbing legs, rubbing hair, rubbing. Okay. I've experienced it a lot with the males. But now I just feel like I'm noticing a trend in society where I'm seeing a lot more women engage in bad behavior. You know what I mean? And it saddens me to say that because we've always been like the good girls of society. Like we always are like, really not doing too much. But I mean, I'm seeing a lot of sexual misconduct in these schools from women. I'm seeing a lot of women, you know what I'm saying, ending their husbands, poisoning them, taking them out. That's a new trend that I'm seeing also. And I'm like, it could just be now because news is so accessible, we see a lot of this. We don't want to get stuck into kind of tunnel vision, and not be looking at things kind of from a scientific lens. But I just find it interesting. Okay, so what they are saying that really could be something that is driving this, especially with these young, attractive um, white women, is that first of all, they kind of have always maybe had a perception of being seen as a good person. We're not really aware sometimes is how we're showing up in society. And, a cute white woman is always seen as very safe. Like, hey, I feel comfortable with her. I'm safe. There's not a lot of stigma attached or stereotypes attached with, white women. So you're always seen as a safe space in society in some respects. And I think that these women kind of use that maybe to their advantage. They know they're not going to get caught because no one's looking for them. If this was a large black male, people are always kind of on defensive for a male in general, that's a possibility because all men do it. But then again, when you're part of a minority group, sometimes you're looked at with extra scrutiny, like, oh man, watch out because they might be. But again, with the white women, no one's checking for that. No one's thinking that their adorable, high school teacher is knocking down the football team. No one's thinking that. It's just very, kind of something that we don't see it as a trend. Okay. So it's a lot that goes into this. But one article that I kind of pulled up talked, it kind of gave like maybe 6 points. I'll kind of touch on a couple of them here as to why this might be something that is easy to happen. So, number one, it's a reduced perceived authority gap. So, when a teacher is closer in age to the student, for example, early to mid 20s, and then you have some seniors in high school that are already 18 years old, you know. So at that point, they could be saying, well, they 18, they a student, but hey, we're two consenting adults. And that's kind of, what do you do with that point? I mean, if the dude is 18, you know what I mean? And the student, I mean, the teacher is, you know, 23, because technically if you do your college to become a teacher, the minute you graduate high school and you go right into college, some people might even be still 18 when they start their college. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. By 22, you could be right back in the school as a teacher. That's only 4 years. So again, you've got these some students who are 18 and the teacher's only 22 years old. So is that 18-year-old really looking at somebody that's 22 as someone that is off limits? Someone who's an authority figure, someone that, they need to respect and, you know what I mean, have a distance with, There's certain kind of social constructs like when there's a big age gap, you automatically give a level of respect. You automatically, kind of act a certain way. But a 18 to 22-year-old, these are the same peer group. You know what I mean? You really need 10 to 15 years between ages to where you're kind of starting to be in a different peer group. And some would even argue within a 20-year, especially once you get older, someone who's 30 can relate to someone who's in their 50s. You're still kind of in that a similar place in life. Now, again, this is totally different because we're talking about very young people, and now that can kind of overlap into the underage, the under 18, which is absolutely still a child. And that's when that hard boundary comes in. Like, hey, you're 22. If you're messing with a 17-year-old, that is inappropriate. Okay. So that particular article that I read about this particular teacher did not say how old the student was. I don't know if you look this situation up, you might see that the age is revealed. I didn't see it on what I read, but I could have just, maybe I just didn't pick the right article that revealed enough info. Um, but yeah, so that's one thing. It's the reduction in the perceived authority gap. So again, when you have that, you're going to have this increased social overlap, which is kind of the second point that I looked up on this, and it said use of social media, being familiar with the same music trends, the same culture, the same communication style. If you're 18 or 22, you're still saying bruh. You like, Chapel Roan or whoever are the popular music people. Like you're ingesting the same kind of content. So then now you've got more talking points and there's more opportunity to get familiar because you've got more things to bond over, which is a problem. And so I feel, this is my 2 cents. I feel that there needs to be an age limit for women who are teaching in high school. Okay. So, like, if you just graduated and got your degree in education and you're going to be a teacher, I think you should start off with elementary school kids. That's my 2 cents. Now let you teach the elementary kids because there's a bigger age gap. Now we're talking at least a 15-year age gap. Okay. And there's also going to be a size difference. So sizing, how big or how small we are, you know, affects how familiar we are with each other and how we communicate with each other. So now, if you're 22 and you're teaching kindergartners, you know what I'm saying? They're up to your ankle. They little, so everybody can kind of stay in their proper place. So again, my 2 cents is stop putting these girls who have just graduated and gotten their teaching licenses in high school. They're kids themselves. Now, by law, they're not kids, but literally at 22, you're still a kid. You know what I mean? So I don't think that should be allowed. I think to teach with high schoolers, maybe you need to be 30, 40. Heck, maybe you need to be 50 to teach in high school. You know what I'm saying? Put a big old age gap in between. You know what I'm saying? Because maybe that'll help. That's my 2 cents. Okay. So, girl, if you got a child in high school, in person school, and you walk in and you see the teacher is young and cute, girl, unenroll your child. Okay, literally unenroll your child. Take them out. be like, look, I just need a new teacher. You don't have to say the reason why. Just be like, I need somebody that my child can understand and have authority for. Find them an old teacher. Get Miss Jenkins that's been there 80 years. You know what I'm saying? She ain't taking no mess and she's not interested in nobody young. Okay. So that's what I would do if mine are in person school. But y'all know me. We do virtual school over here because I don't want to have to hit nobody with one of these about my child. You feel me? So that's how I do my how I'm doing because these teachers aren't. It's getting weird. I'm seeing more and more cases like this. I remember when I was a little kid, there was one instance of a teacher. I forgot her name. She was again a younger, cute white lady, and I think her student was Filipino, and he was like 13 or 14 or something like that. And that was weird. But that was like the one case that happened, and I never heard nothing about that for probably another good 10 years. Now, within 1 year, I'm hearing of all these little cute white teachers knocking them down. Okay. And so I'm like, I want to speak on this and share it with you guys because a lot of, you know, people have their kids in school. Like, this is a problem. This is a problem. So, again, I think it's going to take parents complaining to the school boards and pushing for some limits to, uh, for ages in these different scenarios. That's what I think. If you can't get those changes to happen, girl, you always have the choice to request a different teacher for your child. You always have a choice. So that's what I'd be doing because this trend is alarming. Okay. Now I got a couple of funny ish ones for the end of this. We'll get into a little bit of celebrity. Y'all, Britney Spears is out here acting erotic again. And I hate that for Britney because, oh man, I could just remember the first time I saw a Britney Spears video, you guys. I was probably in like fifth grade and I saw her come on the screen and we were walking through a department store in the mall, me and my mom, and she came on the screen and it was that hit me baby one more time, and I remember just making my mom stop. I was like, Mom, I have to see this. I have to see it. I was just like mesmerized and sucked in by Britney. Like, I love Britney. Like, Britney was one of my gems, and I love Christina too. I love Destiny's Child. Like, I loved all of those performers. Like, so to see Britney in this space, and I just feel bad for her. So, anywho, let's talk about what happened with Britney. So, Britney was out to dinner. This was actually from Page Six reported this. Dinner guests lift lid on Britney Spears' erratic outbursts at LA restaurant. She was a nuisance. A dinner guest who witnessed Britney Spears' outburst at a Los Angeles restaurant detailed the pop star's rough night. In an exclusive interview with Page Six, Jeff Snyder recalled that he and a friend arrived at the Blue Dog Tavern in Sherman Oaks. Y'all know where it is. Around 7 p.m. on Wednesday night, soon after a woman behind sunglasses and two of her friends walked in, but they didn't immediately recognize her as the Princess of Pop. The woman sat down and proceeded to make a lot of woofing and barking noises and throwing a lot of outbursts. It was really not real until she took her sunglasses off and we realized, oh no, this is Britney Spears. Poor Britney. Uh, Snyder, who has been an entertainment reporter for 20 years. Now, again, I'm kind of taking what this person is saying with a grain of salt based on that last line I read. Been an entertainment reporter for 20 years. Like, are you fluffing this story a little bit to make it a little more sensational, to make it a little more crazy? I don't know. I wasn't there. This is all alleged. This is my 2 cents. But this person alleges that Britney Spears kept standing up and sitting down and moving around the restaurant. He also claimed that at one point while she was standing up, she may have forgot to put down her silverware and was holding a knife. I didn't feel threatened or anything like that, he clarified, but she eventually left and I turned around and was like, wow, that was crazy to the entire section. Snyder alleged that one woman sitting in their section did feel threatened and said of Spears, "She had a knife and came towards me. I thought she was going to stab me." Yikes, not Britney out here trying to stab people. Oh, I hate that for her. I hate that for her. So it goes on, but basically, Britney did just finish her rehab treatment, but she did, according to this person, had several alcoholic beverages at the restaurant. So maybe she was just, drunk and high and out of her mind. But I will say, Britney was, on social media doing all these spins in her house with knives. You know what I mean? Girl, she was spinning around and tossing knives and stuff. So it's just giving a little crazy. It's giving sinister. I won't say sinister. It's just giving, I don't know. It's just giving crazy. But anyway, people kind of had split decisions at the restaurant. Some decided that they didn't really see her behavior as a threat. They didn't feel threatened. And then a couple people said, yes, I felt threatened and felt like she was going to stab me. So I think this is a good example of when people are pushed too far. I think Britney started out as a very nice girl and she has just gotten trampled, to death by the industry, by people who were supposed to love and care about her. And it's just a hot mess. So, we're hoping the best for Britney. I hope she gets it together. I hope everything is okay. I just hate to see her like this. It's just so sad to me. Like, it is literally so sad. So, anywho, let's get into this last one. This one is a little bit of a hee hee ha ha and a little interesting, but it's also a little like, I don't know. It makes some people blush a little bit, but this is a woman's podcast, and I think it's important to talk about this stuff. So, anywho, what am I talking about? Pam Grier. For those who know Pammy, I'm not really familiar with her like that. I know she was the thing back in, I think it was the 70s, maybe even some of the 80s, and she was just like that, like it girl, beautiful black woman. And even in her mature age, I'm looking at a picture of her right now. She's still a pretty woman, and she is 76 years old. Okay, don't hurt them, Pam. So what's interesting is that she recently was being interviewed and she kind of opened up about her sex life while aging. So I wanted to share what she had to say because we always hear all this negative garbage about aging. And I'm not saying that aging is not hard. Like, who wants to get old? We know we had eternity planted into our minds. Like, no one wants to get old and go through all that. But at the same time, I think it is important to have a level of being positive about it, especially in this system. There really isn't much we could do about it at this current time. So, trying to find the positives in it. So, anyway, Miss Pam Greer opens up about her sex life while aging and says, "At my age, one orgasm will last 3 whole days." Wow. Very, very interesting. So it says actress Pam Grier, who remains a sex symbol long after starring in the 1970s classics like Coffee and Foxy Brown, is opening up about her sex life off screen. I don't know why I'm whispering this, but I just feel like because I should be whispering. But she's talking about she has 3-day orgasms at 76 years old. Greer reveals what doing. Huh? Oh wait, I'm sorry. Greer reveals what's. I don't like the way that was written. It was a bad right. Greer has always embraced her sexual self and being an icon actress and a sex symbol. In August 2025, she described herself as, she's super, corny, okay? And now in May 2026, Greer is again opening up about her sex life. This was this past Wednesday on an episode of Julia Louise Dreyfus. I'm not familiar with that podcast, but She compared her experience at 76 to that in her youth. And she said when she would have three and four or five, now she's having three or four or five orgasms an hour. And she says, I think I might be 70. I think I might be 77 this year. I might be. I don't know, nor do I care. If I wake up breathing, I'm going to have a good day. I like that disposition. She like, look, at this point, I ain't even keeping track of my age. Um, and basically, what she goes on to say in the article is that um, it's basically easier for her to achieve orgasm as she's growing older. She also goes on to say that the sex that she's having now at 76 years old is much better than in her youth. She even says maybe when you're 90, um, it'll be a whole week. That's what Dreyfus says. And then Greer laughs and says, yeah, if I could have had that when I was younger, I would have had a better life and better boyfriends. Okay. So that is what she is saying. She's saying that, you know, the pleasurable sensations just go on for days for her, and that she loves, having sex at this age, and she is just doing the thing. And I'm just like, I love that. And I like it because it just keeps it like positive in our minds about aging. It's not like you hear all this stuff about, menopause and, all this stuff. She's like, look, I'm good. Okay. I'm good. She's good with hers. So, I just thought that I would share that. Like I said, I think that she seems to me to be someone who's aging naturally, but she still looks like herself and she still looks good. The picture I'm seeing, she looks cute. She looks, I'll say, moderately fit, like she's not, super, super, super overweight. She definitely isn't thin, and she's definitely got, normal age weight. She looks like a normal person in her age group. I would say maybe not normal. She looks a little better than, like, she's got herself really put together. Her makeup looks cute and everything like that. And I mean she probably has a good amount of money. It's easier to do stuff like that when you have a lot of money, but I just appreciate her sharing this because, she's talking about a topic that we don't see commonly talked about, which is sexuality as you age, and that even for women, they are still having a great time as they're aging. They still have sex drives, even though she clearly, has to have gone through menopause, and she is still sexually charged and she is rip roaring and ready to go. Okay. So I love that. I love that. I love that. So, girl, we done talked about so much today. I hope you have enjoyed this. Okay. And I will talk to you next time. Bye bye.